My mom was not a big fan of the weather in Maine. The fact that she couldn't drive made things hard enough, but with how thin the walls were, and that you had to use oil to heat the home, it was not going to pan out viably on a financial level for her. So, she has this idea of going to Nevada, going to Las Vegas, Nevada, and going to another women's shelter there, which is all the way on the other side of the country. We are near the Canadian border. We're like an hour away from the Canadian border from Quebec. This is northeastern Maine. This is the most northeastern part of the United States you can get to. Let's just go West Coast, you know? That's West Coast. Well, it's not the West Coast, but let's go out west. Let's go to the Western Desert. Let's go to the Mojave Desert. The change of weather, perfect. So we end up going all the way to Las Vegas on this long, multiple days long bus ride because my mom was just not going to be able to handle the weather in Maine. She was already getting really sick. Walking was a hard task for her. There was this concern that we may freeze to death in the wintertime because of just how expensive oil heating the house was. Heat left that place immediately. You would think that there were holes in the walls, you know. That's how thin they were. So it was not an economically viable place to stay. I wanted to go to California because I had talked with the woman on the phone who had ran one of the shelters that were there that we were going to try to go to, and she said go to California because California has significantly more resources than this state. And when I told my mother this, she screamed at me. She yelled at the top of her lungs, "I do not want to live in a state with horrible people in it!" And she shook her fist when she screamed this. She screamed this so loud as she was shaking her fist, and I had to hesitate not to laugh because it just looked really silly when she did it, and it was very funny. Like, it was like something that like a 3-year-old would do, like a little kid. She's always had very childlike reactions to things like that because my aunt lives there, you know. She lives in California, and she just didn't want to live in the same state as my aunt, despite the fact that it is a gigantic state where you can choose from many different cities that had shelters that were not occupied, that had space open for us to stay. But no, you know, it's like the entire state of California that has more resources, and we would be fine if we stayed there, whereas here in Nevada we would not be fine because of how many resources they don't have, and that we know this objectively from speaking to people on the phone. We're just gonna go there anyway. We're just gonna go there anyway. Let's try our luck, you know. Let's do the roulettes. Let's spin. I want to spin the slots. You know, I take my hand and I push it down on the machine, and it go machine go bird. Woo woo. You know, it's like, ooh, try my luck. Am I gonna win? Am I gonna win? Ooh, am I gonna get a double jackpot going? Is it gonna go? No, I got all my money taken away. That was essentially what had happened. That was essentially, we cashed it in. We cashed in everything we had. We had to throw away a bunch of our stuff on the way there because it was too much to carry. We had spent all this time and money trying to prepare to live in this Maine place. Well, we didn't prepare at all, but like, she had took out a student loan of like $2,000, immediately spent it all because she's impulsive as fuck. But you know, like, that was supposed to help us get to the next place to start renting. But no, instead, we leave the state to go out to Las Vegas where everyone is poor and there's no resources for poor people because of just how many of them there are. Brilliant plan. That was basically it. What ends up happening is that we're homeless, effectively. We're constantly running out of money. I have to beg people on Discord in like the most pathetic fashion that I can. Literally just beg friends of mine for money, just so I could continue paying for hotels or pay for a bus to try and get to. This was the funny part, was that I actually found a shelter we could go to, and I had the money to get on the bus to go to that other city, Gardnerville it was. I had been on the phone calling all these different people after we had gone to all of these different hotels, and I had called these people and they said, yeah, we'll have a spot for you, just come in and do the interview process here, we'll bring you in. And then at this point, my mom just wants to go to Kentucky to live with my dad. And it was like, I put in all this effort to find this place that would take you. After you bring me on this fucking suicide mission to Nevada, I find the place that would take us in. I have the money to go there. And now you've miraculously decided not to go there in favor of going back with this guy who you seem to have, had so many problems with, and that you seem to hate so much, that you seem to be so uncomfortable around, that you want to go back there. You want to go back there when I just found this place that we could stay. It was like one step forward, two steps back every single time with her. And of course, she wasn't uncomfortable around him. She never was. She just sort of reacted as things were happening, but she was able to live here months and months without any uncomfort, with no problems whatsoever. And so the whole thing was just a bit of kabuki theater, as it always is with her. And so we end up going to all of these different hotels. And at one point, we end up having to stay in North Las Vegas because obviously we can't stay in the Strip. The Strip is just too expensive. So we have to stay in North Las Vegas at this, what was it? Casa de Blanca was the name of the hotel. You can look it up online. It was this really like broken down looking hotel that I was using the city's internet. The city had public Wi-Fi, not the hotel, the city. And I was logging into the city's internet. You had to like not sign a waiver, but like agree to the terms of conditions that you'd be like monitored or something while you were on the internet, something to that effect. But yeah, it was free internet that the city had. I would use on the phone while I was outside. But it was a very loud hotel. When we had a room on the top floor, so we had to like open up this like chain mechanism thing, and then like walk up the stairs to go up to the second level of the hotel. And as I was walking through, there was this guy who had the door open, this black fellow who was like shouting at his wife, who had appeared to be Latino, although I didn't quite get a good look at her. He was like just shouting at her like as loud as he could with the door wide open, with him at the door. I just kind of said hello and then kept walking. But like he slams the door. And I had gotten into the hotel, which was right by it, and you could hear him like beating her in the room. Like, I'm not kidding here, of like her being upset, and he was like screaming at her, calling her like ungrateful and these other things, again in public as I was walking through. But yeah, you could hear domestic abuse right by the door there. And I was constantly asked for cigarettes in Las Vegas by random people. I could not go to a store and stand outside without being asked for cigarettes by somebody, or being asked for money, or being asked for weed. One guy came up to me. He was so incoherent, I just didn't know what he was saying. So I couldn't really know what he was on about. And there was this like black guy in a beanie with this really small Asian girl who like they came up to me and started asking me these like really cryptic questions after asking me for a cigarette, and I said I didn't smoke, which was a lie, but I didn't have any with me at the time. And so like they like kept like going to the other side of the strip mall and then like looking at me, and like the small woman would like come over to where I was sitting in front of the grocery store and just like kind of like look around, and then I kept looking around, and I would pull out my phone and I would make it look like I was about to call someone, and I'd like look at her while I was doing that, trying to give some body language, and then she like ran away, and that was fun. But there was a woman who my mom had met at one of the shelters that we had tried to go to, and this was once again one of her brilliant ideas. She decides to give this woman a hotel before telling her off, to go off and try and what was the wording she used, make her own decisions. But she gives this woman like $100 room for a hotel, money that we desperately needed. Some random ass skank in the middle of Las Vegas. I'm just gonna give her a room. That's a wonderful idea. who she had met at this shelter because she had what was it, just gotten out of jail? Yeah, she had just gotten out of jail and needed a place to go because, as she had put it, her husband framed her because he was a drug dealer who was in with the quote-unquote corrupt police. And already this story she was telling was complete nonsense, because at the point in time we're in today, like, the police infrastructure is so advanced, and that the level of income that everyone has is so great that, like, you're not going to be bribed off by some random drug dealer. This was not a cartel lord or anything like that. It was just a random guy, as she was presenting the story. But no, of course, the police have to be paid off by them. She has to be arrested without cause for no reason as a white woman. Her husband's just a real bad guy who's doing bad things out there and is the cause of all of her issues. She had been saying this while at the same time saying that she regularly hears things that aren't there, sees things that aren't there, and has episodes of mania where she, like, believes things that aren't real. And she was also trying to say that, like, you can't trust psychiatrists because they don't know the truth, man, about what's in your mind, and that a lot of those things are real, and that the people, like, she would, like, go to her hotel room and say, like, the people in her head were, like, being mean to her and stuff. Very obviously, none of the conspiracy that she had been talking about happened. But my mother completely believed it because she had a few of her own conspiracies she was buying into. She was just indulging in this woman's, clearly unhealthy behavior that was going to end up her sleeping in the courtyard, however many nights it was, until she ends up, offing herself. And so there's no sympathy to be had there. It was just a random crazy person. But my mom ends up taking the money that we desperately needed to spend on this random skank. It was not a fun time having to watch her go through all of these irresponsible decisions, and every time that I tried to provide a suggestion that would actually work effectively, she simply refused. One of the first times I had hard liquor was also in Las Vegas. My mom had went to this, like, pina colada place and, like, brought one to the hotel room, and I drank a bunch of that and realized that I really liked pina coladas. It was like, I think that was the first, like, that was like the first, like, hard, kind of like hard liquor drink that I had, because I'd been drinking wine up to that point. And that was, like, my main experience with alcohol, besides, like, taking vanilla extract out of the cupboard when I was a younger kid and just, like, drinking it all the time because we had a bunch of vanilla extract with, like, 60 or 70% alcohol. But yeah, that was really cool. I got to drink a hard alcohol pina colada, and it tasted really good. And I got very disoriented and dizzy, and I went to sleep that night. That was cool. But yeah, other than allowing me to have that, the having her as a parent during that time was not fun. It was not a good time. I give it a 2 out of 10. Was there anything else interesting that happens? There was one thing I want to save for a written piece, just because it's, like, such evocative energy that I kind of want to save it. Our Uber drivers, the couple ones we had, weren't really interesting. Yeah, basically my mom indulging crazy people and refusing to listen to my rational financial decisions. Good times. We end up getting on a train to go to Kentucky, which is where I live now, in this exact house, still to this day. Late November of 2018, this occurred. We leave Las Vegas after not even a month of being there. Not even, like, it wasn't even, like, 2 weeks of survival. It was just, like, a little over a week or something like that. Almost like a vacation, I guess you could say. Really retarded.